Welcome back to the Twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully, and Nick Tammaro is back filling in for Vance Hanson today. We're going to be debating the prospects of two 3-year-old fillies on today's show, Fionn and Shred the Gnar, who put in eye-catching performances and graded stakes over the weekend. We'll also talk about some standout performers and racing news that happened this past week. And to close out with Thanksgiving next week, we're going to focus in on some food, racetrack food specifically, and talk about some of our favorites from around the country. Thanksgiving food, tie it all in. All right, well, Nick, to start things off, let's talk about the futures of Shred the Gnar and Fionn. Both won grade 3s over the weekend. Fionn winning the Jockey Club Oaks at Aqueduct, and Shred the Gnar wiring the field in the grade 3 Chalukey. Which of these fillies do you think have better chances of leading their respective divisions going into 2026?
Yeah, fun question. And obviously, a couple of really talented 3-year-old fillies. I mean, my inclination would be to say Shred the Gnar because with Fionn, we don't know if a horse like She Feels Pretty could be coming back. And it feels like they'll be in a lot of the same races throughout the year. I also wonder if Fionn and Laurelin have now run against each other in 2 straight races. Laurelin outfinished her at Keeneland, and Fionn beat her on the square on Saturday. But I wonder how much the distance may have had to do with that. And I'm a little skeptical that at 1 1/8 that Fionn is necessarily better than Laurelin. Shred the Gnar is an interesting question because, by the end of the year, the 3-year-old filly dirt division was a pretty scattered bunch. Nitrogen is going to win the Eclipse, deservedly so, but there was nobody from that division that really strikes a lot of fear into you next year. Nitrogen, while she ran as well as she did, she never really improved, whereas Shred the Gnar's win in the Chalukey on Saturday, I thought was a clear step forward from what had been some really good efforts prior to it, and prior to her suffering a setback in June when she was supposed to run in the Acorn. And it kind of makes you wonder if she had run in that Acorn that day, what the rest of the 3-year-old filly division would have looked like by the end of the year. I can guarantee you Lucara wouldn't have wired the Acorn. And we'll see ultimately how good Shred the Gnar is, and maybe we can sort of opine and dream about what she could have done. But the reality is that we will see what she's capable of doing as a 4-year-old. This division in large part is backloaded with the big races. There's not a grade 1 until the Apple Blossom. But you would imagine Shred the Gnar would be pointed to a race like the La Troyenne. I'm sure would get an opportunity in the Phipps up at Saratoga on Belmont Stakes Day. And I'm very excited about her. So my answer among the two would be Shred the Gnar. Having that kind of speed in North American dirt racing, always a good thing.
James, what case can you make for Fionn?
Well, I just want to say that I agree with most of the points that Nick made about Shred the Gnar. She's extremely exciting off that Chalukey win. One thing about Nitrogen, though, I mean, I'm not going to hold a runner-up effort Shred the Gnar still has to get to where Nitrogen was, to me, like in Alabama. And, even in the Spinster, I think she would have won that race if the race had a legitimate pace scenario in it. She just got beat in a head bob that day by a filly that loves that track and had everything her own way. So I do think Nitrogen, she's got an opportunity, if she points the dirt, to be better on dirt next year than she was this year. I still think if she still has more in the tank, she could be phenomenal. Now, Fionn has the same element with Lush Lips and Laurelin. Laurelin beat her in the QE2. But what gets me excited about her is that I do think she's improving right now. And I just love this turn of foot on Saturday. Nick mentioned the 1 3/8 distance not being the same trip she'll be running in, some races next year. But I just think, here's a 3-year-old filly. I think her best races are in front of her. She's won 4 of her last 5. And in that race that Laurelin did beat her at Keeneland, that was an extremely hard turf course. I thought that Laurelin got the favorable trip, and Fionn tried to close from last to first that day. I think that the course played a little bit of the difference in there, and the lack of pace in there. So one thing I'll just say about Fionn is that you got to understand these European base fillies have dominated the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf for a long, long time. And the last American-based filly to win it was Sister Charlie. Moira was based in Canada, had made like 11 or 15 starts at Woodbine. She's the last North American-based. But the last American-based one is Sister Charlie in 2018. And the last American-based filly her entire career, you got to go all the way back to Stephanie's Kitten in 2015. Fionn has raced exclusively for Brad Cox, and she's got a chance, I think, to be pretty special next year in the filly mare turf division.
It was her 6th win in 8 starts this year, and there's a chance we'll see her again. Brad Cox said that December 26th, she could end up over at Santa Anita in the American Oaks, but we have to kind of wait and see if they're still going to point toward that race. As for Shred the Gnar, I think you made a good point, Nick, with the competition a little up in the air. There is no Torpedo Anna. She retired, and Nitrogen probably is going to be the top 3-year-old moving into that older dirt female division that Shred the Gnar would have to compete with. Brian Lynch also said that this is a filly that you could race sparingly throughout the year, so we might not see her a whole lot next year, but the goal would be the Breeders' Cup. I guess there's good and bad to that. If you don't have as many races, you kind of have to show up to all of them. But so far, she has been unbeaten since stretching out to a route distance and clearly is a very speedy type. I guess some of those California-based runners for Bob Baffert could be some competition for her and have similar run styles. But I thought Shred the Gnar was really impressive. 99 Bristnet speed figure, a career best this past weekend, and looks like she's only going to keep improving. And Brian Lynch also said the more distance, the better. So I'm excited to see her stretch out even farther and see what she can do. Well, she was at a mile this past week, but she had raced at 2 turns previously. So
yeah,
we'll
at
see how
Churchill
she can
Downs
handle.
on the Oaks undercard, she went a mile and
Yeah.
a 16th, and I mean, it was brilliant that day. And she's by Into Mischief out of Bernardini mare. That's the same breeding cross as Sovereignty.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun to
Oh,
see
go
her at a
ahead.
longer distance. I mean, I'm not thrilled about her probably having about a 4-race campaign leading up to the Breeders' Cup, but that's the reality nowadays. And maybe Brian Lynch, if she's still looking like she wants to run sooner, would consider a great January objective like the Houston Ladies Classic, which she's welcome to partake in. Be a great way to get her campaign started. No cross promotion on my part, but you know what I'll say, James, and I agree with you. Obviously, the European horses have dominated the filly and mare turf. With that said, She Feels Pretty ran a winning race this year, and In Italian ran a winning race in 2022 at Keeneland. So we've not been disgraced. The other interesting thing, and this probably works more towards really Fionn's favor, is that next year's Breeders' Cup is at Keeneland, so it's going to be run at a mile and 3/16, which is a 2-turn race, obviously, as opposed to a 3-turn race. That race should never be run around 3 turns, as far as I'm concerned. Those are classic distances for Europeans, and the fillies, like this year, the fillies that can go that far are going to go to the turf. So it's great at a mile and 3/16, mile and a quarter, which is what it'll be the next couple of years. And that probably works to Fionn's favor as well. But I'm not going to be surprised if her and Laurelin end up having a little bit of a rivalry. I think they're both really, really talented horses. I mean, they put 4 lengths on the balance of that field, against whom they were all better, but they put 4 lengths on that field very, very quickly. And I think they're both going to be very nice next year, both in the hands of a trainer who you would imagine will probably get them to continue to move forward as well.
Interesting note about Keeneland. Fionn has done very little wrong in her career, but her worst finishes, which are a 3rd and a 4th, happen to be at Keeneland.
Both at Keeneland. Good point.
Yeah.
And I know you're going to talk about Graham Motion also, and he's got the Laura Lynn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love Graham.
Let's move over to other top performers from the weekend and racing news that caught our eye. I'll start with you, James.
I'll just mention the Claiming Crown at Churchill Downs. This is the 3rd time in the last 4 years it's been at Churchill, and the participation was unbelievable in the 8 Claiming Crown races. In the last 7 races, you had 4 fields. 4 of the last 7 races had 12 horses. You had 1 with 11, 1 with 12, and 1 with 13. So averaged more than 12 starters per race the last 7 of the last 8 races. You had 110 trainers and 54 different jockeys entered on Saturday's 11-race program, the 8 Claiming Crown, the other 3 races. The participation, I thought, was unbelievable. And from those 8 wins, 6 of the horses were exiting different circuits. And none of them were Churchill. Now, some of them were based at Churchill, but none of them had made their last start there. So you saw good representation from other circuits and areas of the country. Mike Maker, it almost lapped the field in terms of wins and past Claiming Crowns. He won 1 of the 3 races he had a horse entered in. Luis Saez, among active jockeys, had a sizable advantage in terms of the most wins in the Claiming Crown history. He won 2 races on Saturday, so I mean, once again, he just shows up every time he's riding in it. And the two big events were the Jewel and the Emerald. I'll mention those two winners. The Double Your Money won the Jewel at a mile and an eighth on the main track. He was third in the 6 furlong Reddy's Rocket Express. He's turf stakes placed. He's based with Benjamin Dunn at Parks, and his regular rider Melvis Gonzalez was in for this win on Double Your Money. And then in the Emerald, we saw Echo Lane win for Rohan Critton. He was exiting a race at Colonial Downs, had run fourth at Deterministic in last year's Grade 3 Virginia Derby. And he figures to point to Tampa Stakes as well, this turf stakes this winter, having run second there in a stakes race last year. So I just thought I'd put the spotlight on the Claiming Crown.
That was Echo Lane's second straight year winning the Emerald. And then the trainer for Double Your Money, only 25 years old, been done. So that was kind of cool to see, because you mentioned how there were so many connections from all over the country, these horses coming from so many different circuits. And it was cool to see these lesser known connections and a young up and coming trainer get a win with the co-feature event on Saturday's card. Nick, I think you're taking it over to New York. Enough of the Kentucky racing for a second. So tell us about what caught your eye.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't announce the likelihood that there was, as small as it was, that Blaze Bowman would interview Melvis Gonzalez at Churchill Downs. Like, that was exactly what everybody was looking for on the Claiming Crown card. So all the stars undoubtedly were out. It was a fun day. I can tell you, Travis Stone sent me a text Saturday night and said that was the hardest day of race calling I've ever had. And he is not a guy that complains about his work whatsoever. And he wasn't complaining. He was commenting. It was obviously big fields, new silks, all that. So it was a lot of fun. I want to talk a little bit about Flavien Prat, who, since going back to New York after the Breeders' Cup, so basically from the Sunday, November 2nd card until now, he's 24 of his last 63 at Aqueduct. And it has been a pretty amazing run for Flavien during that period of time. He actually didn't have any mounts slated for Sunday in a card that ended up getting canceled. He was supposed to go out west for the Bob Hope. That didn't get drawn. And so he ended up staying home, only rode one race. But otherwise, last week he was 7 for 25, which seems like a bit of a slump for him, right? At only 28%. That's what he is each of the last 2 weeks, but still just this incredible number since he's gone back. And the race that I thought most accurately described how well Flavien's been riding was his win in last week's Notebook on Friday on Jaxer, who is a 2-year-old colt in a New York bred race for Graham Motion. So Flavien is on one of the two in the Head of Plains Silks, which are going to be the Aqua. He's got the Aqua cap, while the favorite in this race, Caroline Street Beat, has the pink cap and is on the outside. This is a 2-year-old making his third career start, right? And Flavien is able to work this horse to the inside, get him through, gets through this seam without ever losing his momentum whatsoever. I mean, this is textbook race riding. This is just as good as you're going to see a jockey go. And we're all being treated to this on a regular basis between what Irad Ortiz Jr. is doing at Churchill and what Flavien's doing up in New York. So never a bad thing to me to identify some of the people that are at the top of their game and are continuing to deliver over and over. And that's obviously the case right now with Flavien Prat, who will be one of the 3 finalists for the Eclipse Award. It's a ballot that I'm glad I don't have to cast.
Well, I'll take it from a 2-year-old that you just mentioned to an 8-year-old gelding who retired and was celebrated at Churchill Downs this past weekend. Bango, who was he is the winningest horse in Churchill Downs history with 12 victories beneath the Twin Spires. He had a career 15 wins from 42 starts, 1.6 million in earnings. And on Sunday, we had a little retirement ceremony for him at Churchill Downs. He had multiple stakes wins at Churchill. Greg Foley, the trainer, was there, and owners Fred and Debbie Schwartz. About 70 of their friends and family were in the paddock as well. It was definitely an emotional day for Greg Foley. He was born and raised in Kentucky, and to have the record at Churchill Downs meant a lot to him, to have that with Bingo winning 12 times at Churchill. But Greg is also going to have a horse in the grade 3 Commonwealth Turf this Saturday. Wanted to highlight that stakes race happening at Churchill. It's going to be Troubleshooting, a grade 1 winner, the first grade 1 winner for Greg Foley. Got the one in the Franklin Simpson at Kentucky Downs over, I guess that was the summertime, right? Technically the summer. I don't know. It's all a blur.
Close enough.
But also, yeah, close enough. Also got a win in the grade 3 Bryan Station. So on a 2-win graded stakes win streak. and going to be facing some really good rivals on Saturday. You've got Giacoso, who was the Grade 2 Secretariat winner at Colonial. You have Mancetti, the Kings Plate champion this year, who's trying turf for the first time. California Burrito, if you remember him from Turfway, he won the John Battaglia Memorial. And then Flying Mohawk, who was last seen in the Kentucky Derby. In his lone try on the dirt so far, he's going back to the grass, and he broke his maiden on Churchill's turf. So he's probably going back to his preferred surface, and he'll be a part of that Grade 3 Commonwealth turf on Saturday as well.
It was great for them to honor Bango. He was still training well. He just didn't want to do it in the afternoon anymore, but it's understandable considering his age. And the Foleys did a great job managing him, I thought. And, Greg Foley's one of the top 10 all-time winningest trainers at Churchill Downs. And I thought that was great that Bango got honored like he did with the ceremony.
If they had invited the Louisville Cardinals football team to the ceremony, Bango could have told them to get comfortable in Louisville, right? Like, they can't win at home. He couldn't lose at home. So it's a dual purpose type thing.
Yeah, that's a sore spot. I was at that.
No comment on that.
Well, to close out, we won't have a roundtable next week for Thanksgiving week, but on the theme of food and feasts, we thought we would talk about our favorite racetrack food in case you're ever looking for some recommendations around the country. Nick, I'll start with you. What would you say is your top racetrack food item?
So this was a tough one, and this is probably why they invited me, which is appropriate for this particular topic. But I went with the bread pudding at Keeneland, which is a little surprising. Shockingly, I'm not the hugest fan of sweets, but boy, the bread pudding at Keeneland is stout, very, very good. Couldn't go with burgoo, not as a Texan. That would have looked a little too suspicious. But so I settled on the bread pudding at Keeneland. But I will offer my honorable mention were any of the carved sandwiches at Santa Anita. Very, very strong racetrack food, as well as a little bit of the cold seafood that you'll get down at Gulfstream at 10 Palms, and some of the sliced meat that you'll get up in the Turf Club and Millionaires Row at Churchill Downs. So I had a lot to choose from, right? It was a great question for me.
James, I think you have a few.
Hey, so listen, let me say, they used to have food out in the press box at Keeneland, and it stopped around 2020 with the pandemic. But they would have bread pudding in there, Nick. Like, they'd have a big container of the dressing and all you wanted. And I put on pounds every April and October from that press box. I mean, all the bread pudding you can eat, you couldn't beat it. But I did want to mention Saratoga. I've been going to since like I was a little kid. I love the chowder bar. And I'm not talking about this Surfside chowder shack that's selling regular New England creamy clam chowder. I'm talking about first floor grandstand near the track chowder bar, Manhattan chowder, clam chowder. I always love to get a bowl there. At Del Mar, La Veranda Cafe, their beer battered tacos are awesome, and you could sit out there and watch the horses in the paddock. Great experience there at Del Mar. But my favorite are the sandwiches at Keeneland at the Paddock Carvery. They got corned beef, they got corned beef Reuben, turkey Reubens. They're fresh carved sandwiches. I've been having them since I was a kid, and I think it's the best racetrack lunch going. So I'll mention the Paddock Carvery right by the Paddock, first floor Paddock Bar at Keeneland.
Is that a personal photo we have right there of you with a Reuben at Keeneland?
I don't know.
Twinspires jacket in that video, I can tell in that photo.
Somebody pointed out that the nachos at Keeneland. Oh man, and I've seen those. I got an order of those last year. I mean, everything at Keeneland: the burgoo, the chili dogs, even though they got vanilla ice cream cones. You can't beat it. The food at Keeneland.
I clearly need to try all of this food because I have not had any of the items that you two mentioned. I was telling Nick before we started the show, I have a bad habit when I'm working at the track. I bring my own food because I feel like I'm on the go so much that I just have something packed that I can just easily grab in the media room because we don't always get our own catering in the media parlay unless it's like a big race day. But when I do have a chance to go to the concessions, I have some go-tos at Churchill Downs. It's the chicken tender basket. That is one of my favorites. Got to get your protein and a little carbs there with the breading. And I also recently discovered we have dill pickle tater tots. I'm a big tater tots fan to begin with, but the dill pickle flavoring, and it comes with this some kind of ranch sauce as well. So if you're at Churchill and you haven't tried the dill pickle tots, I think dill pickle flavoring is like the pumpkin spice flavoring of concession food.
Oh yeah.
So everything's got pickle flavoring now. But it's one of my favorite items. I sometimes just get the dill pickle tots, not even with the chicken tenders. And I did try this weekend. So I was up in the Jockey Club suites. I was there for Claiming Crown for Friendsgiving, and they had some kind of like pretzel sticks with cinnamon flavor that was really good, and like a whole bar with different types of icing. And they had little mini sliders that were really good too. I don't know if this
They've
counts
been
as food, but I wanted to throw out to the Woodford Old Fashioned and the Oaks Lily.
nice, nice. They at Churchill, they're big hot link. They'll switch that up meat to meat. It's pretty cool. They'll have like some kind of pickle sauce, some kind of cheese sauce, some kind of other sauce. They'll check out their big hot link if you like hot dogs. It's not bad there at Churchill.
Dill pickle tater tots. You don't have to sell me on those. I'm a tots over fries guy. So that would
Yeah,
be,
same.
yeah, I'm in the minority, I know, but welcome to the team. But yeah, those sound amazing.
Well, we probably won't eat anything like this for Thanksgiving next week. Churchill will have a Thanksgiving Day card in case you don't know, and they prepare I don't know how many pounds of turkey and mashed potatoes and all of that. Definitely a fun day of racing if you are around and want to go to the track for Thanksgiving. But like I said, we won't be here next week for the roundtable. We will be back the Tuesday after. So we wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you the next Tuesday.